UCLA has some clear-cut goals in the class of 2026 recruiting. What are they? Let's talk about them.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast. And thanks for coming back every dayers. Thanks for your support. And hey, let's get ready to rock and roll. Where we get started today, we're talking UCLA recruiting in the class of 2026. We'll dive into the UCLA baseball regional and some potential X factors and players to watch for UCLA in the Women's College World Series. But first, let's rock and roll with UCLA recruiting. The Bruins are clearly on the road, whether you've seen posts from the Kaika Malloys of the world, the Andy Quads, any coach, any player is either getting visited by a UCLA coach, they're in contact. It's that recruiting season, and UCLA was far behind in the class of 2026 recruiting. They had 4 commits heading into mid-May. For the class of 2026, well, they double that, and they're looking for more. This is where UCLA needs to target. One, they're going after some big-time dogs. Micah Smith, Champ Smith, as he's so commonly referred to in the state of Florida. Brian Smith of the Portal podcast came on the show a couple episodes ago. I highly encourage you to go watch it. We did talk about Micah Smith later on in the show, and this is a big guy. One of the positions of need for UCLA after struggling these last couple of seasons on the O-line. Can they get what Brian Smith calls a plug-and-play type guy? Comes in as a true freshman and can start for a Big Ten team as an offensive lineman, right? A 4-star guy, 6'5.5", 325 pounds. That's a guy that's built already to potentially start college football, and he's still heading into his senior season in high school at Vero Beach in Florida. One of the top interior offensive linemen, top 10, a top 25 recruit in Florida. It would expand UCLA's national recruiting if they can go get a Micah Smith. And this is a guy who I believe Steve Wiltfong of On3 had crystal ball and predicted, if you will, that UCLA might get this guy. It's still up in the air. You never know. Ohio State stole a UCLA recruit late in the early signing period in the fall/early winter last year. There's still Alabama, Illinois, Arkansas in on these guys. So top tier NIL opportunities at the Ohio States, at the SEC schools of the world like Alabama that want to go potentially buy a kid like this. And UCLA, if they can win this recruiting war, would prove they can match with the big dogs in recruiting. They can expand, as I just mentioned, national recruiting and address a position of need for a recruiting class that needs a lot more offensive linemen. This, if they could get Micah Smith, would be a huge get. All right, a huge get. And even if they get that commitment, I haven't seen what a potential commitment date would be. If they could get this commitment and secure it through him coming to UCLA, would be absolutely huge. 2, another offensive lineman. He is crystal-balled elsewhere. He's 6'6", class of 2026. This is a Bakersfield kid. So theoretically, in UCLA's own backyard, Bakersfield, a good place for high school football. They can develop their O-linemen. You've got Quinn Buckey, who is looking at Vanderbilt, but there's still enough time before his scheduled commitments, June 13th, that maybe UCLA might put in a last-second push over the next 2.5 weeks to go get a guy like Quinn Buckey, who, according to 24/7 Sports, is predicted to go to Vandy. All right, so that means obviously he would have the grades. He's got 21 offers, has 4 visits. He is about to go on his official visit to Vanderbilt on May 30th. So when I'm recording this and dropping this pod on May 27th, he is going to his official visit to Vandy. The Bruins, who had their official visit scheduled with Buckey back on May 15th, that's the situation there where it's like, hey, can the Bruins bring home Quinn Buckey? That would be a huge get. Another offensive lineman, an offensive tackle in this regard to continue to bolster that. You get Micah Smith, Champ Smith. You get Buckey. You flip, maybe not flip him, but shift his mindset. And hopefully that May 15th visit can make a big difference versus him going to Vandy. Because obviously if you're going to Vandy, you got grades too. You got the grades to go to UCLA. The Bruins, and I would assume Vanderbilt, always in need of offensive tackles who could maybe plug and play, who could start within a year or two, got to develop. the Bruins are in need of developing O-linemen, and I think they're starting that process, but getting a guy like Bucky, who is predicted to go elsewhere, a Bakersfield product going to Vandy, those are guys DeShaun Foster should keep in Southern California. All right. So adding to the list of offensive linemen and offensive tackle, and then you've got Oscar Rios, a unique product, 91 composite ranking, 92 composite ranking if you're looking at 24/7 Sports, 6'3" QB hailing from Downey, California. He's already said, I believe, on camera to various recruiting experts, he's not afraid of the quarterbacking situation at UCLA, which involves Nico and 3 years of eligibility left in his college career. I doubt Nico stays 3 years, but he has that available with the transfer portal and the NFL draft looming after 2025. You've got Madden, who just transferred in. He's a true freshman. I expect him to redshirt and try to develop and maybe be the number 2. Pierce Clarkson, who just transferred in. You've got Luke Duncan, who's been taking all these reps for UCLA. You got a bunch of guys who have a lot of reps. But Rios would represent a top 10 QB. He's a top 20 prospect in California, 4-star kid from Downey, and he's going to visit UCLA on June 6th. He's got another visit planned to Arizona. Colorado is about to visit Virginia Tech in a few days on May 30th. Last visited Oklahoma State. This is what Greg Biggins, the 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst, said. One, this is a guy that's a pure passer, had a great sophomore season, a strong completion percentage, about 73%, quick release, throws with touch and accuracy down the field, and a projectable frame, plenty of room to add good weight. And he's one of the best quarterbacks out west, and he's a guy that could trend up and could be a good guy for UCLA to get. Why am I so high on this kid? I'm not sure Madden would be ready to go right away. I'm not sure Pierce Clarkson on his third school in about 2.5 years, 3 years would be the guy. He could probably be the number 2 after Nico. And until Nico's gone, he will be the number 1, clear cut and dry. But I'd like Rios, who's already not afraid of this. If he wants to stay home and he wants to bet on himself and say, hey, considering Downey, you would think, all right, where's Warren? That's in the same area. He probably knows his talent in regards to where the Iamaleava stand, where the UCLA quarterbacking room stands. And if you build that relationship, then next thing you know, the Bruins could get a 2026 QB. So a lot of this is get Rios, continue a high school QB pipeline, and as much as you want to say you brought in Madden to be maybe the number 1 guy in 2026, I've heard different things from my sources, whether it's talking to guys within this network, talking to guys closer to the situation from the high school days. I'm not sure Madden would be ready right away in year 1 or year 2 after a year of development as a redshirt. Go get a guy that I think Rios would probably be ready sooner than Madden Iamaleava. I would think get this kid. He's got a deep list of teams that would want him. He is also going to commit in late June, June 25th. So we'll know right away if UCLA either lost out on this recruit by bringing in Madden, or if he wants to come to UCLA, or someone else says, hey, we could promise you a better, higher spot on the depth chart, NIL opportunity to pull you away from Southern California. But a large portion of Rios' recruiting, if you look at where he's going, West Coast or going to Virginia Tech, going away. So I'd like the Bruins to keep him home. Speaking of keeping him home, look at the top recruits that UCLA has commitment-wise. You could argue as to what the analytics are. Some guys are 4 stars on the On3/Rivals site or 3 stars on the 24/7 Sports site. But you've got Jaron Pula and the Pula twins, who've been the class and some of the longest-standing verbal commits to UCLA. The Pula twins, Jaron and Kenan Pula, from the state of Utah, top-tier recruits in the state of Utah, like top 10, top 5 recruits in Utah State as a whole. Can the Bruins keep them? That is something I believe I read from Pro Report that they're going on official visits. There's all these kids are going to go on official visits. They're going to go, hey, we're going to go here. We're going to go there. It's official visit season for the guys checking out new places. So keeping some of these guys committed to UCLA will be key. So again, get Micah Smith. Change everything with the big-time plug-and-play offensive lineman. Maybe swing Bucky back to UCLA. Keep him in SoCal. 3, get that quarterback. 4, your 4th goal, keep the guys committed to UCLA. You got to maintain those relationships because somebody else is going to bring out the pocketbook, promise a higher spot, maybe overpromise and underdeliver, and UCLA's got to be there and say, hey, this is not the way that's going to lead you to success at the college level. Stay with us here in Westwood and play at the Rose Bowl. All big-time goals and a tough thing for DeShaun Foster to manage to juggle, but all the guys are out there. Can they start winning in the high school recruiting game? They did for a week. Let's start seeing a bunch of commitments coming in the next week or so, or next month when it's commitment season. All right. Next, we will talk about UCLA baseball. Their regional was released. No surprises. Irvine's in it, but some other teams I think are certainly beatable for UCLA. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money is not another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You track accounts, investments, spending in one place, and stop managing your money and start building wealth. For me, I'm like, wait, the surprising insight I made, why am I spending so much on my theme parks? When did those prices increase by like $10 a month? I was like, wait a minute. I want to still go to these things, but I got to budget smarter. That's where Monarch Money comes in. And I realized how much I was spending on that and food. Man, and now I budget smarter and I save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, cruising on second segment. Let's go all around and talk UCLA baseball. This is their regional that they have. The Bruins, which was announced Sunday night. I talked about them losing in the Big Ten tournament final to Nebraska, but I recorded that before it was announced. The Los Angeles regional was a thing. Jackie Robinson Stadium will host another regional for UCLA for the first time since 2019, when the Bruins were the number 1 overall seed. So it's been since prior to the COVID years, 2019, 6 years, that UCLA has hosted a regional. And last year, they didn't get anywhere close to that. Now they're the 1 seed, and I would say they're the underdog in their own regional. I'll be quite honest with you. This is a team, John Savage's club is the underdog in their own regional. I already came out and said it on Sunday. They're going to throw UC Irvine in the regional, which happened. That was way to expect. You look at the projections. If they're going to give UCLA a hosting opportunity, one of 2 Big Ten teams to host, one of 3 West Coast teams to host, UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State, they're going to throw all those Western teams, West Coast teams from the Big West, the West Coast, the WAC, the Mountain West. They're going to throw most of those teams in the regionals with UCLA, Oregon, and Oregon State. So with the Bruins getting to the Big Ten tournament final, I figured, all right, that should do enough to give them the hosting bid, which it did. The Bruins are the 15 seed, so they're matched up with the 2 seed Texas's regional. If UCLA wins the regional, they would host a super if Texas fails, or they'll be going to Austin to try and find themselves in a battle for the Men's College World Series. Way too far ahead. As I said, UCLA is not even favored in their own regional. They get a first-round matchup, in a sense, versus Fresno State. Fresno State, a team out of the Mountain West, second straight year they've made it, went on a strong run at the end of the year, 5-1 in their last 6 games for the Bulldogs. Of course, you remember that year in 2008 when Fresno State went on the run as the 4 seed all the way to the national championship and won it. Not sure that's the case of this Fresno State team. They're 31-27, swept through the Mountain West Championship, beating San Jose State twice and dominating the 1 seed Nevada 12-7. UCLA on Friday is actually playing a midday game. They're playing a 1 p.m. game in their regional. So if you're like, I want to go check it out, they're playing the middle of the day. That means they don't get the primetime slot in TV. They get a little extra rest, maybe a lot less fanfare, but they'll have more rest when it comes to their pitching staff, which is the dire need of this weekend. I know Eric Sonheimer of the LA Times has talked about Wyland Moss potentially returning this weekend for UCLA. He said that multiple times on social media. The potential help on the way is Wyland Moss for UCLA. Can he come and save the Bruins in this regional? That's a lot to ask because it's all hands on deck to win a regional. To win at minimum 3 games if you go 3-0, or you got to win 4 elimination games or 2 or 3 in a row if you don't win that winner's bracket game. Fresno State is a game I don't think UCLA should be worried about, but their pitching staff has, in my mind, not given me any confidence to say any game is a gimme. Their bats are good. Rock Chalowski, Big Ten Player of the Year, one of the best players in all of college baseball, one of the top picks expected to be in 2026 MLB draft. I'm good. I think they can swing it well, and Fresno State would represent something that UCLA's seen all season long, which has been Big Ten pitching. This is a Mountain West team. But UCLA's not that elite that any matchup is a gimme. Now let's move on to the 2-3 in the UCLA regional. That's Arizona State, who the Bruins played at Jackie Robinson earlier this year, a 2-game midweek set. They split that series. And against UC Irvine, who they played in 2 separate Tuesday midweeks, winning the game at home, losing at Irvine. So this is what ASU brings to the table. First, the 3 seed of the UCLA regional, a 35-22 team, a losing record away from home for the Sun Devils, but a team that lost 4 in a row, which included getting swept at Oklahoma State to end the year and a 1-and-out against BYU in the Big 12 baseball tournament played at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. So a rough way to end the regular season. But overall, I thought, ASU played decently in the Big 12. They have some dominant wins. They dominated Ohio State. They beat UCLA 2-0 on a Wednesday game that started at 2. Won the majority of their series against West Coast powers like a Gonzaga, who normally plays well, the WCC. Winning at TCU 2 out of 3, which is normally a tough place to play. Beating what was a ranked Kansas team at the time. Winning a game against Arizona. Mostly getting some strong series victories. But I'm not convinced Arizona State's going to get past UC Irvine, which is where I've said it, of course, my personal bias. UC Irvine plays really good baseball. I've seen them in person. I saw them when they lost to it. I saw them beat a team they lost to, and that team was really bad. UC Davis, being quite honest with you, they're not that good and didn't put out a good lineup. But Irvine just looks so dominant in my mind. The Big West regular season champs made it to the Big West tournament final. First time they've had that in like close to 30 years. Irvine is 41-15. They were on the verge. They were basically, for the majority of the season, slated to host. This was going to be a 3 or 4 West Coast regional year until things shifted over the last part of the regular season. So the Anteaters, who are 20-5 on the road, 20-5 on the road, 5-3 in neutral site games, 16-7 at home, 24-6 in a pretty strong Big West that sent a couple of teams to the tournament. Big Ten sent 4, Nebraska, USC, Oregon, and UCLA. Funny enough, UCLA does not have a winning record against those other 3 Big Ten teams if you combine those games together. Series lost to Oregon. UCLA couldn't win that series against USC. Split against Nebraska if you lose that Big Ten tournament championship game in there. So against the tournament teams for UCLA from their own conference, UCLA does not have a combined winning record against those teams. They did split against UC Irvine in a midweek, which is different, right? Sometimes those teams are playing the 4th starter. As much as quad 1 has become a thing in baseball now, it's not the same as it is in college basketball or the big game in college football, because the 3rd or 4th starter is not the same as your weekend rotation. Irvine, who they did lose their Big West championship game where they had the double elimination format, were in the final in the driver's seat. They weren't at full strength. Overall, they weren't at full strength. I know they're missing one of their better bats in the lineup for their final game of the Big West Championship. So I wonder if that will be anything to look at going into the weekend. But Irvine is really good. It took them losing 2 of their last 3 weekend series on the road, at home versus UC San Diego, losing at home to Cal State Fullerton, where they almost blew the regular season Big West Championship. They almost lost it on the final weekend. That's where they lost their hosting bid. If they win a couple more games, there's a strong possibility Irvine would have been hosting UCLA and the Bruins would be the 2 seed in the Irvine regional. That's how close it is and how confident I am unfortunately, in Irvine being in the driver's seat in this regional. All right. That is how good they are. They've got dominant arms. The Big West is still a good baseball conference. Arguably, you could argue that some of the worst teams in the Big Ten couldn't even hang against some of the best teams in the Big West. That's, a crazy statement. But that's not so bad if you're talking West Coast baseball versus the middle of the bottom pack in Midwest baseball. Irvine, Ben Orloff, who has taken over for them, really good. They can swing it. They're powerful. They got great arms, really elite relievers, but they are susceptible to dropping a game or two. So that's where the Bruins have to get some good time starting innings. Is that going to come from the return of a Wyland Moss? Is that going to come from an Ian May? They have not proven, UCLA, they can get depth and quality innings from any sort of starting pitching. They have not been able to. This is going to be a big-time offensive weekend for UCLA. I believe it's supposed to be warmer this week. UCLA playing the earlier of the games on Friday, too. UCLA has to outslug and outscore teams. And generally, when you have to do that against Big West teams, when you have to do that against, some scrappy West Coast teams, they can have some pitching. And if you lose 5-0, you're not always going to outslug teams when, like Nebraska's pitcher threw 8 scoreless innings on Sunday's Big Ten championship game when they played in front of a home crowd, quote unquote, in Omaha, just a couple hours away from Lincoln. It's a little different when you're playing in front of your home crowd in Los Angeles. But the Bruins, I will repeat this, are not the favorite in their own regional. And I hope they take this to heart and they prove me wrong. But they're not. UC Irvine is the favorite in this regional because the Bruins need quality innings out of starters. And all these arms are overused, sometimes abused in a sense where in the regional weekend, when you're playing 4 or 5 games, you're playing multiple games in a day. And there are guys going on 2 days rest after starting and throwing a complete game. That's what happens in the opening weekend. It is a grind in the NCAA tournament to get through it. And I'm not sure if UCLA has the pitching to get through it. Could they sneak in a super and go 2 out of 3? Maybe. Go matchup by matchup. But against 3 teams UCLA could all face, the Bruins need to save. There's not really a pitcher to save. It's just survive and advance. And the Bruins have the sticks to compete. They're strong enough defensively. It's can they keep the ball in the ballpark? That's really what it comes down to this weekend. If they can compete with some of the stronger bats on the West Coast, including Irvine, ASU, and Fresno State. If you survive, small percent chance you host the Super, or you're going to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. Am I crazy to say I think UCLA has a better chance against Texas than they would against UC Irvine in their own home regional? Maybe I am, but that's where my mind goes right now, okay? Next, we're talking some needed players, some X factors for UCLA to go on a run in the Women's College World Series. They start off against Oregon. It's not a holistic look at it. It's just, all right, who are some players that need to step up in certain places for the Bruins to surprise and get to the championship round and, dare I say, finally beat Oklahoma? Talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. UCLA heading back to Oklahoma City. Kelly Inouye-Perez surviving a weekend worth remembering for a long time. A Jordan Woolery walk-off blast in Game 2 to save the season. A dominating wire-to-wire victory in Game 3. And the Bruins finding themselves against another former West Coast Pac-10, Pac-12 current Big Ten rival in Oregon to open the Women's College World Series. A matchup I think that's winnable and could set the Bruins up for success if they keep winning to avoid Oklahoma in the earlier rounds of the Women's College World Series and sneak into the championship round where maybe this year, just maybe, anybody's got a shot. But until proven otherwise, it's Oklahoma the favorite to win their 5th straight championship until they get knocked out. So I'm not exactly going directly matchup by matchup for the Oklahoma City Women's College World Series. Who are the players that need to step up? All right, let's start in the circle. Caitlyn Terry was fantastic against South Carolina in Game 3. You want to hear her numbers? Caitlyn Terry, 5 2/3, 2 hits, 4 Ks, 1 walk. A big time adjustment from her first game against South Carolina, where she went inning and 2/3, 5 hits, 5 earned, 1 K, 1 walk, and hit a batter. Very different in just a matter of a couple of days. But where I'm going to focus on for Caitlyn Terry is, can she swing the bat? She's one of those batters, one of those hitters at the bottom of the lineup, had one of the clutchest hits for the Bruins over the weekend, an RBI triple that set the stage for the completion of the rally in Game 2. So I'm not focused about Caitlyn Terry. We know what she's going to bring in the circle. It's can she provide offensively and add to the bottom of the order for Kelly Inouye-Perez. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Who I'm focusing on in this circle is Taylor Tinsley, because I'm pretty sure UCLA is going to give the ball at some point to Caitlyn Terry, and she is going to be a gamer. It's Tinsley who fought her way through game 2, throwing a CG, 7 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs, only 2 earned, 7 Ks against the South Carolina team that put it on Caitlyn Terry. And you're like, okay, Zach, you're looking at the leader in CGs, almost the team leader in Ks, team leader in arguably winning percentage, but has the most starts at Taylor Tinsley and leads the team in ERA and WHIP. That's not a hot take. But if UCLA is giving the ball game 1 to Caitlyn Terry against South Carolina, I know Kelly Inouye Perez is going to go matchup by matchup, has a whole philosophy in how she might go about it. Can Tinsley put in good innings and have a good outing? And this is where Addison Fisher comes in. If UCLA is going to run their way into a championship round, can Fisher give productive innings? She did do so against South Carolina for a good bulk of those of game 1 before getting tattooed later in the game, and we saw South Carolina run away with game 1 9-2. So it's a combination of can Tinsley go deep into games and keep UCLA in it, and when Fisher is asked to pitch, say UCLA is giving up a lot of runs early from Terry or Tinsley, can Fisher keep her team in the game? And we see a repeat of a game 2 in the Super Regional. I know Fisher didn't pitch in that game, but she did the best effort for UCLA to do something similar in game 1. So it's a combination of can UCLA get something productive out of Fisher in the circle when she is asked to start, or in most cases, relieve if things are going wrong. And Tinsley, this is her time to shine. This is her time to shine because I'm focusing on the bottom of the order, and Caitlyn Terry needs to focus on getting hits. Another player that UCLA needs to get some big-time ABs and swings in, Kanaya Bragg from UCLA's shortstop position. Didn't have the best offensive weekends, but any production swinging the bat, getting her on base is huge. UCLA in the comeback, pinch hit Taylor Stevens for Bragg, and she walked, followed by a Terry triple, set the stage for the UCLA comeback with a Pola hit and a Woolery bomb. And next thing you know, UCLA was staying alive. That's because they pinch hit for Bragg. So if Bragg's going to play short and get a bulk of these ABs, the Bruins need her on base, because if Terry is going to rip a double or triple every now and again, you turn the lineup over, and that's where my next key is. Jessica Clements, the leadoff hitter for UCLA, the transfer from Cal Poly in her grad season. Let's go over her games. 0 for 3 in the UCLA comeback victory, 1 for 4 in game 1, and in UCLA's dominant game 3 victory, let's tell you about the UCLA leadoff hitter, 3 for 4, 3 runs scored. The difference between getting on base when you're the designated road team, scoring in inning 1, completely changed everything. Seeing Sam aggressive South Carolina for a second, third, fourth time, and having an opportunity to get on base and allow Jordan Woolery to drive her in changes the game. I know Pola is the best hitter on UCLA's roster when it comes to average, but instead of having her as a leadoff hitter, she's the 2 hitter. So Clements has to get on for UCLA. They need their leadoff hitter on. And if you get a Bragg on, you get the likes of Terry hitting a double every so often. That's how you turn it into a 2 to 4 to 5 run inning, because some of these teams are going to be able to swing it. Absolutely. So if UCLA needs to score 5 or 6 or 7 runs to win a game, they need their leadoff hitter on, so that bottom third to their transfer who just came in to start in the outfield and be the leadoff hitter have to do a better job of setting the table, turning the lineup over a lot better. So not just Woolery and Megan Grant hitting a solo or a 2-run bomb with the game on the line. You have to put together better innings, better rallies earlier in the game, because all these teams can swing it. Oregon can swing it. There's been times where UCLA's been run ruled, and they've got the offense, they've got the rallies like they showed in game 1, game-tying bat up, game-tying at bat with Megan Grant, with Woolery. They can get on and it just comes through with the bottom of the order. That's where UCLA needs some of these players like the Braggs, Jessica Clements, to come through and get on base for UCLA. And next thing you know, the offense is so much deeper. The lineup's so much deeper. It gels, it flows so much better. Not just, the top 6 of the order and then 3 outs. You get some production at the bottom of the order. That's how you win a championship. That is how you upset in Oklahoma, even if you're not projected to get through the first round or 2 of the Women's College World Series, because they have their challenges set up for them when they play Oregon in Game 1 in Oklahoma City for the Bruins. It is the night game. It's the fourth of 4 games in OKC that day. But a win changes everything for UCLA if they can steal those first 2 victories and give themselves a cushion to get to the championship round and avoid Oklahoma until the final. Because that is what you want to do if you're UCLA. Avoid Oklahoma until the final and not have to beat them twice in a double elimination round before the best 2 out of 3. Get to the championship round. It'll be a successful season, and then they're going to try and rise above and do something even better. All right? We'll talk more about the UCLA-Oregon matchup specifically in the next couple of days. Do a little bit more UCLA versus Fresno State leading up to the regional. For the Bruins, they're in regional round time. They're in Women's College World Series time, and the Bruin football team and the coaching staff all around the country looking for more recruits in the class of 2026. So that's why you should be Locked On UCLA. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. Be an everydayer and continue to listen. Thanks for your support. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.